Okay, this is a recording for Mining Memories on November the 5th, 2013. This is John Cartledge and we're talking to Lorraine Atkinson.
That's right.
Yes. So, to start with, tell us where and when you were born.
I was born 1949 in my grandmother's house at Worley Thorns.
Okay.
We actually lived next door, my mum and dad, but in those days, Grandma delivered all babies in that area. So I was delivered by Grandma.
So, was she the formal midwife or was it just
No,
informal?
just something that they did. They all used to knock on my grandmother's door and they did it right up till I can remember being 10, 12-year-old. If any ladies went into labour, come and fetch my grandma.
That's quite remarkable, really. So, I mean, that was... You lived next door to her?
Yeah,
until...
we lived at 56, Grandma lived at 57. There was a pathway probably as wide as this house, this room separating the houses. And that was, yeah.
Wow, so going to the mining part then, which of your friends or family were actually involved in the mining industry?
Probably 99% of my family.
Right.
Yes. My father, at the time I was born, was a deputy at Worley Thorns, Langworth, but also he was at Nottingham University to get his degree. My granddad had an accident in Langworth Colliery, lost fingers, so he went from actually on the drift to looking after the pit ponies till they were retired, and Grandad took retirement at the same time. My uncle came up as a Bevin boy. Dad's got 3 brothers that were all into mines, and Dad's father actually came up from Peacedown, Somerset, to go in mines up here because there were no work at Somerset.
So they all obviously had different jobs and roles involved.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Do you, of the people you've spoken of, do you think that they enjoyed their work?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not any of them.
So is there any particularly good or bad experiences? I mean, obviously losing fingers is a start.
Grandad apparently a belt snapped and took his fingers straight off. He didn't realise they'd gone until more or less end at shift. So we're talking going back here in sort of early 40s. Because I can always remember as a kid growing up and Grandad doing this and he'd only sort of got those and saying we couldn't do it. I can remember when I'd be, about 9, 10-year-old, my father having to go back to, by this time he was a deputy, I can remember him being fetched into mine and he literally dug his friend out with his bare hands to save his life. So I can remember all trauma from that, yeah.
Right. Mm.
Oh, and my uncle had his most of his arm blown off in a shot firing accident, which was actually caused, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but it doesn't matter now because they're dead, which was actually caused by my father's eldest brother, was the under manager, giving the signal before it had been cleared.
Right. So lots of incidents there, but
Definitely.
Can you describe what a normal working day was like?
We didn't. I'm one of 3 girls. Very privileged upbringing, obviously, but we didn't see father very much because he'd gone for 5 o'clock every morning, got in half 5, 6 o'clock, and that was most we saw of him. And then even Saturdays and Sundays, very rare he had full weekend off, probably the afternoons. So we really had to make most of him when we'd got time with him.
So, I mean, you saw him early in the mornings, I take it?
No, because he'd gone for 5 o'clock.
Right. So,
Yeah.
was he back in the afternoons at all?
No, not till half 5, 6 o'clock. And then he used to come in, Mum would have a meal ready, sit and have his meal together, but obviously he didn't want to sit and chat to girly things. But sometimes we used to think we were very lucky because he had to go either make a phone call or go back to the mine about 10 o'clock at night to set the next shift off. because by this time he'd gone under manager. So we used to think ourselves very lucky, because sometimes he used to let us stop up late and pack us in the car and take us to the pit where he set them all out and shove us in secretary's office and raid the desk for notebooks and pencils, and we used to think we were very good because we got time with Dad on his own.
So, I mean, obviously your father was management position, but
He started out as deputy and worked his way up to deputy manager.
yeah. But you had many other members of your families were involved in mining. Were any of them members of one of the unions?
No.
No.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Could you explain?
That would be like, no, just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I can assure you it wouldn't have happened.
Okay. You've already touched on this, but what was a normal work day like for you as a member of his family?
Oh dear. Mostly sort of getting up. Dad's already gone. We used to be woken up about 7:30, 7:45 by a gentleman called Mr. James, that actually he was the gardener, handyman, and worked in house. And we used to get, Mum used to be in bed as well, and we used to get this voice at the bottom of the stairs shouting, Mrs. Hunt, come on, it's time the girls were up for school. And we used to come downstairs and the fire would be sexy. Obviously it were open fires, his shoes used to be polished, laid out in front of them, and kettle used to be on. And then it was off to school, back home, and we used to, normal children's things, you know, either watch telly or go out and play. And then Dad used to come in, and that was more or less it.
So, what about holiday times? Did your father get much of a chance to?
Yes, we did. We always used to go back. We used to have a family holiday. My mum, Dad, me and my sisters. Quite a lot of the time we used to take either one grandma and granddad or the other one and go away to the coast. But we always, Dad always made sure we had a week where we went back down to Somerset and Cornwall to where his roots were, to keep in touch with that side of family.
So can you describe any of the holidays you had specifically? Does anything stick out in your mind?
One I can remember more than anything was staying with Uncle Bert and Auntie Evelyn. That was my grandfather on my dad's side's brother, and even he was still working for Coalboard down Somerset. And she took us to the bird sanctuary. I can always remember walking miles and miles through Chew Magna, absolutely nothing there. But going to this bird sanctuary that in later years was on the television, so that does stand out in my mind.
Right. And what about your Christmas time?
Very much a family affair. By this time we lived in a really large house. And Mum and Dad used to come, Auntie and Uncle, and they used to stay probably a week or so. Typical family in sort of 50s, 60s. And it used to be Christmas dinner, everybody around the family, and then for tea, other members of the family used to come over. And then at night, we girls used to get packed into one room with a grandma and a couple of aunties and children, while the adults pulled the big dining table out, and it used to be like a casino, gambling, and yes, that went on till early hours. Yeah.
So, how do you feel that living in a mining community affected your day-to-day life? I mean, obviously you were...
We were sort of, to be honest with you, we were a bit segregated as children, even in that time, because it was, we did have friends, obviously, but a bit secluded where we lived, but obviously from school and people that lived near us. But it was very much parents, oh, you can't go and play with her. Their dad's works at, you know, he's management, you don't want mixing with them. So it were a little bit, yeah, not very pleasant at times.
Can you remember any specific incidents where, I mean, was there any
No, you just felt as if you were excluded quite a bit at time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our good thing was though, my dad were absolutely brilliant parents, both of them, joined in everything, commuted. If he could help anybody, he used to do whatever it was. And every year we used to have loads of wood and things that had been left over at the pits delivered to our garden, and this massive bonfire made. And then all kids from around used to come, and Mum and Grandma used to set to in kitchen doing all the hot dogs and the potatoes and firework displays and everything. So that were really good because the parents used to come as well and realise that, yeah, we were like them at the end of the day.
Yeah. I suspect you're perhaps too young to remember anything, but can you remember about the Creswell Pit disaster?
Not at all.
Not at all. Do you
I
remember?
can remember grandparents talking about it because I'm not sure how, obviously I was too young then, but I can remember in later years there were obviously people in the neighbourhood that they knew that had died in it, so
Yeah.
not at all.
Well, can you remember if it had any impact on the community?
I think I was too young to realise anything like that.
Okay. Moving on to the miners' strikes then, so quite a bit later.
Caused a lot of problems in our family because my dad was still having to go into work every day, but my sister at the time was engaged to a miner that was on strike. My mum's sister, the one whose husband was the Bevin boy, he was out on strike. So it caused a lot of sort of friction with the position that my dad was still having to go into work and they were out on strike.
Right.
Yeah, it took a while to wheel a lot of that.
Do you remember your dad's mindset at the time? Was he uncomfortable with the whole situation?
Actually, to be honest with you, he agreed with the miners, but in the position he was in, he'd got to still do his job. He'd got to keep a roof over his family's head, even though he did agree with what they were doing. And he used to be, this is going to really get me in trouble, but he used to get the people at the pit to discreetly fill bags of coal that he used to bring for people that he knew struggling with families. Yeah.
I imagine he could quite easily have lost his
Oh,
job if that was
definitely, but he was he was looking after the people.
Can you tell us any of your own experiences of the strikes? I mean,
apart from the unpleasantness that you picked up with in the family, if we went into shops, you could people would snigger, "Oh, her dad's still working," sort of thing. Quite a bit of hassle actually, because of the position we was in through no fault of his own.
is there anything specifically that stands out in your mind from that time?
Well, like I said, a lot of it was you sort of lose your own identity because we wasn't classed as in his own name. We was always referred to as Mr. Hunt's daughters. Even now, as old as I am, if you meet anybody, "Oh, you're Mr. Hunt's daughter." I'm now, in my 60s, my family's got family, but I'm still not who I am. I'm still Mr. Hunt's daughter. Yeah, and it was, her dad still was at work. It don't affect them. They can afford to have fires and they can afford to still run car. It wasn't a very pleasant experience.
So I would assume then it wasn't well known in the community that your father was helping out.
Oh, nobody knew. There's only you knows. That's why I said at first, put no.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm relying on your discretion with this.
Do you remember any other national or local events that you experienced from the time? Is there anything?
No, nothing that stands out. No.
Okay. Obviously, you had other family members involved in mining. I mean, beyond your father. Do you remember how the strike affected them?
I know my uncles. You see, my father's one of 4 brothers, and all the other 3 was in management at Coalboard. So didn't affect them at all. They was in the same situation as us. But it affected my uncle, as I say, my brother-in-law is now. So really, no. Apart from just causing problems in family, it didn't.
Do you mind if I ask what kind of problems?
I think it was because they thought my dad should have supported him more, which he couldn't obviously because of his job. But my uncle used to come over on a regular basis, and him and Dad used to have some very heated arguments about it. You know, the position they were both in, and of course Uncle was having to rely on his savings, still got his family to support. But my brother-in-law at the time was very young, you know, they wasn't married then, and his father was on strike, and he's got sister and a brother, so his dad was struggling to keep the family. And it didn't go down very well when he used to come up to see my sister every night, you know, and it got a completely different situation at his home to what we'd got at our home.
Right. Moving into after the mining industry, how do you feel? How did you feel rather when the mining industry effectively ended?
I thought it was wrong to close pits that still could work and provide a lifeline for people, but to shut them down, I thought were a dreadful mistake. Yeah,
And
shouldn't have happened.
And what about your own family members? How did it affect? My father, he had to finish work in his late 50s anyway. He had a massive stroke, which was actually caused, they put down to work, stress, everything. He was more or less totally paralysed for 12 years. And they did put this down to pressures of work and everything that had gone on. My brother-in-law, he got moved from one mine to another. It just meant that every time he got settled in one, they closed that down. He didn't take early retirement. He was forced to, in his 50s, by emphysema, caused by pits. So, yeah, it affected us in quite a few ways. And what do the friends and family who are miners do now then? What do they do afterwards to find
well, most of them are now. Dad's got 2 brothers left that are both retired. Say my brother-in-law, he had to take early retirement. He's not worked since. He can't do anything from his 50s. So it's not really, that is the end of the line for our family, I suppose.
Right. Are there any particularly memorable experiences from that time that you'd like to share?
As I say, apart from, I can remember Dad taking me and my middle sister, when he worked at Rennisher Park, they have the drift where you walk down. I can remember him arranging one day for us to be took. Obviously we couldn't go to the bottom, but I can remember him arranging one day for us to be took down to that. A lot of things was sort of when they did presentations and things like this, and we were allowed to dress up and go and be on top table, and yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. How is closing the mines affected the area now, do you think?
I think it's been dreadful for Whitwell. Yeah, absolutely dreadful. The people that, as I say, they moved from one mine to another, still ended up out of work. And in our little part of the wood, there's nothing going for them whatsoever. Nothing at all. And it's
big mistake, because a lot of the men would still be capable, you know, to work in a mine, but they've got nothing.
Okay, thank you for your time talking to me. This is a recording for Mining Memories on the 5th of November 2013.